ratifier la Convention de Genève.
Économie.
Riforma giudiziaria.
Sveiki, čia Europos naujienos, tik pas mus ES aktualijos glaustai ir originalo kalba, tad kai kurie reportažai su lietuviškais titrais. Visa tai jūsų patogumui. Na, o šiandien laidoje savaitės įvykiai trumpai, parlamentas šalia jūsų, Šengenas iš arčiau, galbūt prieš vėl užveriant sienas, Europos kampanija prieš nedeklaruojamą darbą. Visa tai ir žinoma dar daugiau visai netrukus, taigi pradėkime. Ir pirmiausiai šios savaitės dienotvarkė trumpai.
A long-standing invitation is finally accepted, as dialogue with a new ally could pave the way forward for better relations. What's in store for the week ahead? It's time to find out. Welcome to the agenda. Can David Cameron get the backing he needs for a proposal to renegotiate the UK's EU membership? The British Prime Minister has finally agreed to speak at the Parliament to set out his plans for how the UK could stay in the EU. His visit comes ahead of a key EU summit on the 18th and 19th of this month, but it won't be before a full house. He will attend the Conference of Presidents, a meeting behind closed doors of the 8 parliamentary group leaders. Find out how that meeting plays out on Tuesday. A nuclear deal with Iran set a new course for international relations, but is the deal sustainable? A month before the deal was penned, a delegation from Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee travelled to Iran to hold meetings with Iranian officials, an indication that EU institutions were on board with a new era of cooperation. Iran's Foreign Affairs Minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif, returns the gesture as he attends a Foreign Affairs Committee meeting on Tuesday. He said he will not hesitate to act if the inflation outlook weakens. So what will the President of the European Central Bank tell MEPs? The impact of China's economic slowdown has reverberated worldwide, with financial markets sliding. Mario Draghi says the European Central Bank will adapt to the changing situation. So could he step in to stop Europe's decline by expanding monetary stimulus? Find out what he has in store when he attends a meeting of the Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee on Monday. And now for some news in brief. Parliamentarians from across national parliaments are invited over 2 days to debate best practices for the economy. Over to the Environment Committee, where representatives of the World Health Organization will discuss the latest on the Zika virus outbreak. And also look out for a Europol TV interview with the MEP Roberto Gualtieri on Monday, where he'll discuss the Banking Union annual report. Veterinary medicines are set to be given an overhaul to better protect against the harmful effects of bear traces found in foodstuff. Antibiotics are being targeted with clearer definitions and marketing rules being proposed in member states. The aim is also to widen the availability of medicines to veterinarians and to encourage research. The Environment Committee votes on the proposal on Wednesday. And that's all we have for this agenda. Take care and enjoy the week.
Seksualiniai išpuoliai prieš moteris Vokietijoje ir ne tik sukrėtė Europą ir privertė iš naujo susirūpinti lyčių lygybę ir smurto prieš moteris sustabdymu.
New Year's shocking sexual attacks in Germany bounced MEPs into renewed efforts to end sexual harassment and violence against women in public places in this week's plenary session.
Une espèce de chasse à la femme dans l'espace public européen. Ça ne s'était jamais produit. Il faut instamment appeler les États membres qui n'ont pas encore ratifié la Convention d'Istanbul, lutte contre les violences faites aux femmes, de la ratifier.
An EU survey says more than 60 million women have suffered physical or sexual violence since they were 15, at home, on the streets, at work. MEPs want the Commission to draw up a strategy to fight gender-based violence and inequality after the last one expired.
Insistimos en la necesidad de que se adopte una estrategia de igualdad entre hombres y mujeres.
Girls' and women's rights are the unfinished business of the 21st century.
Ms. Reintke says member states should be locked into a unified course of action.
What we have seen happening in Cologne has actually given a push again and has shown how important it would be to put this topic very high on the agenda, and this includes a gender equality strategy.
Cologne is in the spotlight again this month for the annual carnival, attracting up to 1 million people. The police promise increased protection of women and surveillance of suspects.
Na, o dabar pakalbėkime apie Šengeno zoną. Kodėl? Gali būti, kad dar šiemet teks uždaryti vidines ES sienas. Apie tai garsiai ir aiškiai kalba kone visų ES šalių vadovai, kai kurie laikinai jau sugrąžino savo sienų kontrolę. Taigi 20 Šengeno metų, apimanti beveik visą Europą ir užtikrinanti žmonių judėjimo laisvę Šengeno erdvė, gimė iš žmonių svajonių Liuksemburgo kaime.
Arriving in Belgium from outside the Schengen area, I need one of these to get me through. And this is how it used to be across the whole of Europe. Before the creation of the Schengen area, borders between European countries were closed and often a chore to get through. But now, crossing the border between Luxembourg and France seems perfectly natural to us. With all the checks on documents, car searches and administrative procedures making things slow for citizens, it was sometimes difficult to feel truly European with so many obstacles to free movement. Schengen is now a landmark name. And it was this tiny village in Luxembourg that gave its name to the Schengen Agreement, when in 1985, France, Germany and the Benelux countries met together to bring about the end of their internal borders. But it wasn't until the 26th of March 1995, just 20 years ago, that the agreement came fully into force. The agreement was one of the first steps in formalising enhanced cooperation between member states and the European community outside of EU treaties. First, they had to overcome the opposition of several member states before they could bring about their ambitious plans for the free movement of peoples. It was with the signing of the Amsterdam Treaty in 1999 that the legal framework known as the Schengen Acquis became fully integrated into the EU. But what is the Schengen Agreement? Its purpose is to do away with border controls and these rather lovely hats here. And it reinforces cooperation between the police, the judicial and customs authorities in the countries who've signed the agreement. It also paves the way for the countries to work jointly on strengthening their external borders.
Today, 22 out of the 28 EU member states are part of the Schengen area, together with some non-EU countries such as Norway, Iceland and Switzerland. Some countries have special advantages. This is true for Denmark. The Danish can choose to apply or not for any new measures, and the United Kingdom and Ireland, not formally part of the Schengen area, can still participate in certain provisions of the Schengen Acquis, as can Bulgaria, the Cyprus Republic, Croatia and Romania. One of the tools for strengthening police cooperation is the Schengen Information System, or SIS2. For example, police in one country can help arrest wanted criminals from another country or track down stolen objects, all essential for the Schengen area to function properly.
So do member countries have to have their borders open all of the time? Well, no, some exceptions apply. For example, a country can decide to re-establish its border controls for reasons of national security or public order.
As France did in the summer of 1995, when it was faced with a series of terrorist attacks. And since October 2013, it's been possible to reinstate border controls for a maximum duration of 24 months in exceptional circumstances. That is, when controls at the external border of the Schengen area can no longer be guaranteed.
For the great majority of MEPs here in the European Parliament, the Schengen Agreement and Acquis are the backbone of the EU. Freedom of movement is seen as one of the fundamental freedoms.
Atėjo metas interviu. Georgis Pirinskis iš Bulgarijos bandys atsakyti į klausimą, ar nauja ES koordinavimo platforma padės valstybėms narėms kovoti su nesąžininga konkurencija ir darbuotojų išnaudojimu slepiamo darbo pasaulyje.
Europe has a sizable number of jobs and workplaces that are off the radar of the tax and labour authorities. Every year, that's an average of just under a fifth of the EU's €13 billion GDP. Policing this is up to individual member states, but with so much cross-border movement of workers, the EU has a significant role to play, as Georgi Pirinski, the Bulgarian MEP steering legislation through Parliament, explains.
Perhaps you can just define for me, first of all, what is undeclared work?
It is legal work which is performed, but it is not properly declared before the competent authorities. People being employed in undeclared work are very often severely at a disadvantage and are denied basic social and labor rights under law. But also there is a severe impact on the internal market in the sense of unfair competition. And last but not least, this undeclared work denies tax and social security systems of due income.
And what sort of companies and economic operations are you talking about here?
It is the construction industry, it is agriculture, it is tourism, also the care services, domestic work. In many of these, undeclared work is a very sizable and painful proportion of those employed.
What is the platform?
Basically what the platform is a venue for responsible examination of information, sharing of best practices. Each member state is expected to designate a senior authorized representative who within the member state is able to liaise with all the authorities having to do with regulating undeclared work, from labor inspectorates to the tax and social security systems. Member states should feel quite comfortable with the observance of the subsidiarity principle. That is, they are free to either undertake or not undertake any action they consider, but also seeking the value added at union level. Because clearly, especially when it's a matter of cross-border undeclared work, it is not up to simply the possibilities of an individual member state. There has to be this both enhanced information sharing, enhanced examination of experiences.
How much undeclared work do you think has arisen as a result, first of the crisis and secondly of austerity measures?
The competitive environment in markets has become more acute with the recession. And then there are the structural factors. Let's say the lack of employment in many countries in the eastern, southeastern, southern part of the European Union, and people migrating to countries where more employment is available. And here, again, you see there is a significant degree of unfair practices of companies, operators who contract labor and then put them in precarious working conditions, have them accept conditions which initially were not at all clear that would be actually the way they would be working and living. And again, this is something which has to do perhaps also with austerity measures which have squeezed much of the funds going to, let's say, active market policy measures. So it's a complex set of factors, but very much to do with both structures, recession, and austerity.
What would you say at the end of it all to those people who may find themselves in working in undeclared work, but who have a job and are grateful for that?
There is need of many of these people employed in such work to have where to turn to seek, even if you like, information on their rights, understanding for the problem they're facing, protection. Actually, there are really drastic cases where people suffer physical harm, where they are housed in next to impossible conditions, and where they really need a recourse to an institution or a body or a place where they can bring their concerns. And the knowledge that there is this platform, that there are responsible representatives of each member state sitting there who are clearly responsible for seeing that drastic infringements on basic rights do not take place, is something very important.
Okay, Georgi Pirinski, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for your interest.
Ir paskutinė mūsų rubrika šiandien – Parlamentas šalia jūsų. Turite klausimų apie ES parlamentą? Norite suprasti ES reikalus? Kiekviena valstybė narė turi informacijos biurą, kuris yra pasiruošęs jums pagelbėti.
Maybe you feel that European institutions are far removed from your everyday life. Well, in fact, the European Parliament is much closer to home than you could ever have imagined. It's present in all member states through its information offices, even in Washington, D.C. These information offices are the go-to places for answers in your own language on the role and activities of the European Parliament and its members, as well as all EU policies. They also provide free information material, organise debates with MEPs and stakeholders, and keep the media informed of news from the Parliament through press briefings. Information officers work closely with teachers and schools to make the European Parliament accessible and comprehensible to young people through seminars and debates designed especially for them. They also organise a competition called Euroscholar that gives students from all member states, if selected, the chance to become an MEP for a day at the Parliament seat in Strasbourg in France. To keep their finger on the pulse of citizens' need for up-to-date news and information officers are in touch with many different professional groups, local authorities, companies, non-government organisations, and anyone else who has an interest in European affairs and the role of the European Parliament. So, where is your nearest information point? To find it, all you have to do is to type European Parliament Information Office in your browser, and it'll all appear before your very eyes. Oh, and one more thing, don't forget to follow them on social media too.
Tiek šiandien, ačiū už drauge praleistą laiką. Europos naujienos, laida, kurią rengiame drauge su Europarl TV, jūsų lauks ir kitą savaitę, tad iki naujų susitikimų.
Ratifier la Convention de Genève.
Économique.
Riforma giudiziaria.
Bonjour, après la